That, let's go ahead and call this Urban Renewal Board meeting to order. Jeff, will you please call the roll?
Yes, Board Member Mayton. Present. Board Member Smallwood. May have stepped away.
Okay.
Board Member Sheldon.
Here.
Board Member Walker.
Here.
Board Member Exner.
Here.
Board Member Hokinson.
Here.
Board Member Jones is unavailable tonight and the fire district seat is vacant. And Board Chair Pulliam.
Josh, do the math.
I'm trying to. Yep, Corn.
And I do see Board Member Smallwood.
All right, so now we're definitely at quorum now then. All right, hold on. Pull this
In that
up.
respect, Mayor,
My math was terrible.
I will probably recuse myself on the second item. Are we gonna become a problem with the quorum at that
So
point?
now you're back to doing math again.
Yeah, what's the total number of seats?
Well, total number of
Nine.
seats
It's
is nine.
nine, but
of
we
which
have
is
one that's
right now.
vacant.
So you wouldn't,
Do that to 8,
yeah.
and then we have
We would have 6 without Counselor Exner.
6 still. Yeah, we're still good.
Okay,
All right, cool. With that, so tonight, guys, we have the approval of the meeting minutes from December 18th, 2023. Under new business, we have the tenant improvement grant Sandy Underground project, as well as the purchase of a lot purchase at 39050 Pioneer Boulevard, the parking lot. With that, let's get into the approval of the minutes. Unless there's a discussion, I will entertain a motion to adopt.
I make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from December for
Sure.
the SIR meeting.
Is there a second?
second,
There's a motion by Board Member Walker and a second by Board Member Exner to approve the meeting minutes from our December 18th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nays. Motion carries. Moving ahead to new business, a tenant improvement grant for the Sandy Underground project. Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor, or Board Chair.
Yes, get that right. Show the respect.
Let me do a screen share here.
you might not like what you get.
Yeah.
Why is it not?
It's working.
Yeah, I was trying to do the slideshow. Oh, there it is. The button was hidden. Okay, so tonight before you, you have a tenant improvement grant request for Sandy Underground. This request is in the old VFW location that had the facade improvement grant that I don't know if this.
Under the VFW, it had a facade improvement grant.
Correct, yeah, after it was purchased by the current property owner. So as you can
Wait,
see.
I'm sorry, pause, sorry.
Yeah,
The facade improvement grant was for the VFW or
No, it was-
for Mr. Hoffman?
it was for Mr. Hoffman. After he closed on the property from VFW, then he's the one that applied for it, and that's who was awarded the grant.
And was there anything like that before from either facade or tenant done in that building in the last decade?
Not
before
that I'm aware
we're
of, no.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so,
think it's-
as you can see, it really actually did a lot for that building. The siding was really old. We did some sandy style elements on the front with like the wood beams by where the sign is there. We did some shake up above that. And then we also fixed one of the worst issues with the building at the time, which was the staircase was kind of leaning. Similar to the Masonic Lodge, which has also been fixed now. I think they were just older buildings and the staircases had settled and everything was kind of leaning at that point. So Mr. Hoffman and the city both invested quite a bit of money into remodel of the old exterior of the VFW. And I really do think it's a much more attractive and functional building at this point. So it was used as a Sandy VFW. It was purchased by Mr. Hoffman, as we just talked about. The Urban Renewal Agency provided a grant for about $28,000. Since that grant, the property has not had a tenant or an active tenant at least. And that remains today. However, before you tonight is a request to, I believe it's a purchase of the property. Miss Haney, Yvonne Haney is in the audience, and if you have questions after I go through my slideshow, she's here to answer any of those questions specifically to the business or to the potential land purchase or anything around that. So I'll just be kind of covering the basics, and then if you do have questions, she can answer them for you.
So this is we're in the process of purchasing.
Isn't it a lease to buy
Believe so.
thing?
It's a lease to own,
Yeah,
so
that's
right.
we'll lease the property until January of 2025, at which point it will change to an owner carry contract. So that you're able to occupy the building for 2 years to build up the business credit you need to buy the building in the traditional market. It's very difficult to get a mortgage for a new business. And so Todd was kind enough to work with us so that we could still buy the property from him and not have to worry about somebody else purchasing it, or taking us out after we renovate the.
So thank you for that. So who is the recipient of the grant?
It would be Yvonne, she's the one applying.
My program.
As the occupant of the building.
Correct, and we do have, all the improvements are to the building itself, though. So it's not like you'd be, if that deal fell through or the business went away, the improvements would still exist within the building.
Okay.
And I do have in writing, approval from Mr. Hoffman for the modifications that Ms. Haney is looking to do as well. So we do have that in writing as well already.
Question on that. Usually in a lease agreement, things that are attached are part of the building. Dishwashers, dish sinks, prep sinks and things like that are generally not considered part of the building.
In this case, I think they would be actually, at least the sinks. I don't know about the dishwasher.
Okay.
But usually the sinks, because they would have to be approved with a plumbing permit, so they would be attached to the structure essentially. So typically they would stay with the building. The dishwasher is an interesting question. I think that could lead, but
I believe all
It's
these
just one of
items,
those things when restaurants go belly up, all those things get sold off. Real
The
quick.
things that are attached, though, they become part of the structure. What does the dishwasher look like? Is it like a commercial attached?
I don't know.
Don't know.
so I don't know why they're asking their questions. I always gasp. I
The
know
reason-
why I'm asking mine. Mine is because I've seen us I've seen us grant these things to people and then see them up and leave, right? And then we no longer as a community have the value of that.
That's why I'm asking,
That's
because
what
those
See, I thought- yeah,
items
right.
were specifically listed.
Yes,
On there.
yeah.
But in fairness to them, this whole long list of dishwasher sinks and also, that's the $67,000, cost estimate. We're only funding, 30,000 or something
I
like
get it.
that. And so
Yeah.
we'd be funding the
Sure.
things that are not.
This isn't me saying no, this is
Oh,
me
I
asking
know,
questions.
right.
Yeah.
But I had, yeah.
Right, but where my concern is like, there's like this, and I don't even know this to be for sure, but I think it is, you have a local brewery that used to be a local restaurant that no longer has a commercial kitchen in there that we paid for. Well, not paid to your point, not all the way for, but paid a
Yeah.
substantial amount for.
Right.
And so I guess my only thing, and this has nothing to do with this individual project or thinking that this business will be good or bad. I think it's a very cool plan. But I guess, and it doesn't even have to be for this specific project, but I'd like to see us have protections for our investment. So to Don's point, if someone just, the business doesn't work out, and so then they start selling some of these things, well, we're investing so that this property can have these improvements, right? Because we want to bring somebody into this building if this business isn't successful.
No, yeah, I totally agree.
So how do we protect that?
I think the devil's in the details on that, so it's gonna be in that whatever contract or agreement we come up with, so that I'd have to work with the attorney's office on that.
Yeah.
What I will say though is if people, and not this business in particular, but if a business that we awarded a grant to did belly up and then start removing things, then it's gonna be a civil action between us and them. So we're not gonna be able to just like send the police down there and stop them from doing that. Most likely, it's gonna have to go to court and everything else.
It is different if these
Right.
things become the ownership to the property, right? So by time, and this is the difference between a leased arrangement and an owned arrangement, right? If these items are ultimately owned by the property owner, then the leasee goes belly up or whatever, they stay with the building. That's the important thing.
We did have a property, and I won't say who it was. We did have a property though that in town that when that tenant moved out, they
They
stripped
shelved.
everything.
No, yeah, that's a good
yeah.
point.
Board member Exner knows who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But they stripped everything. And I mean, when I say everything, I mean everything, toilets, everything.
It was not.
And
good.
so what ended up happening in that case, I'll just let you know, we weren't party to it, But the property owner and them got into a civil case and it went to court and everything else. In the end, I think they just kind of ate it and let it go.
So-
But yeah,
so-
I would have to work with our attorney.
So I'm not trying to stop this deal. I really think it's a good project, right? But I guess what I hope staff is hearing is we'd love some, or I at least, and I think other counselors are nodding, would love some investigation into just how to protect our investment in these properties.
That's all I'm
That's the
after.
key.
Yeah, and I can definitely work with Josh on that. The one thing I will caution you though is there, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think with a program like this, there's always going to be a little bit of risk.
Yeah, that's an okay answer.
We
I just
wanna
want you to have
minimize-
thought, I wanted to feel like you have thought about it.
Yeah, that we've done due
We,
diligence. to
we want to
cover.
minimize the risk, not
Yeah.
make it
Right.
go away completely.
Yeah.
And we want people like you to be successful.
Mhm.
Yes.
I would love to provide some clarification on this issue for you guys, if you'll allow me to speak.
Sure.
I'm also happy to wait until the end.
Well, if you want to on this issue, yeah, that'd be fine.
Would you
So-
mind coming up just so the microphone
come
picks
sit
up
by
your voice?
Sitting by Kelly is less daunting to stand.
So currently, the budget for construction only covers permanent changes to the building. The dishwashers we're providing ourselves. All of the things that we install are going to become permanent fixtures of the building and they will belong to the building. We will not be allowed to remove them if the business were to fail and we were to leave, which I don't foresee happening, but you know.
As part of your lease, that's built
Yes,
in. Okay,
so
thank you.
as part of the lease, every permanent change we make, everything that is permanently anchored, that all has to stay. So sinks, the only things that we would be able to remove would be the furniture, which is not covered under this grant request. And the dishwashers, which we are purchasing ourselves. The plumber is supplying all of the fixtures. And as such, those fixtures become permanent parts of the building.
And are we only talking about the downstairs?
Yes.
And so you're only leasing it on the downstairs portion?
We are
or-
leasing to own the entire building, but the upstairs of the building is not ADA accessible and it's going to be a very big, very costly project to make it. So we will have to either install an elevator or a ramp. but there-
Kelly, that facility had so many people coming in and out of it. What are we doing?
So, yeah, well, I don't want to get into a 101 on ADA, but you're moving from one use type to another.
Yeah.
And it's been shut down for multiple years as well. at this
So now
point.
it has to come up to code.
Yes, it does.
Okay,
And you've answered my questions, as Kelly ahead of time. So there is ADA accessibility to the downstairs today.
In the
There
And you're
is.
going to maintain that as
Yes,
part of your
that
restaurant.
is correct. And we've had the building inspected by Terry Gift, who confirmed the downstairs is ADA accessible and the restrooms downstairs are also ADA.
Very
The
good.
upstairs, the restrooms would need to be renovated because they're tiny little closets and they're not even half the size they need to be. And the upstairs would need either a ramp or an elevator to access. So for the duration of our lease, we're only leasing the downstairs space as we didn't want to spend an extra $1,500 a month to rent a useless area that we couldn't do anything with. But when we buy the building, we are buying the whole property.
Just for the rest of the council, in general, I would like to see us make sure that ADA accessibility is built into our criteria for every grant, especially its TI oriented grant. Tenant improvement. Facade, maybe you make the
what do you,
case, yes or no.
I don't know, when you mean a requirement that it gets ADA compliant before?
For example, let's say this basement deal didn't have an ADA.
Yeah.
thing. I don't think we should be spending city money to do a tenant improvement on it if it doesn't create ADA accessibility.
To the portion that they're trying to
To
move
the
into.
portion that they're using, correct.
So you're
So in
not
this
ha-
case, I'm
yes.
happy.
So you're not, yeah, so Carl, just because I thought you was going one direction and I clarified. He's not saying that they need to get the ADA all set up for the upstairs and everything
Correct.
before doing this, just the,
But
just the
whatever we're
portion they're
investing the
accessing.
money in.
But sure.
Should have
Yeah,
modern ADA
Yeah.
accessibility.
I guess I would be cautious of this because there are some things that happen because, for example, in historic buildings, it's very difficult to maintain the historic sensibility of a building and do some of the ADA. I've been very personally involved in some of these things. So I would be cautious about making it mandatory. I get the part about being access and being able to understand how to get a business to work before we spend it, but to say that ADA has to be part of the,
Well, because to his
Requirement,
point, they're not,
or-
we could spend all this money and then you can't even get an occupancy permit.
get it. But there are a lot of buildings out there that don't have ADA that we are still using as government.
I'm just letting you know my position. It has nothing to do with
Yeah.
our decision today.
Yeah, me too.
I'm just letting y'all know.
The one thing I will say to, board member Hokinson's point there is that if it does trigger ADA improvements, I think his point is well taken. Because
Yes,
the last thing we'd want to do is get involved with an ADA claim
yes.
Oh, yeah, right, we wouldn't.
on a project that we lended money to.
So with this, is there more questions or are we good to approve?
Do you want me to go through any more of the slides or?
Is there more?
Well, I only got.
Yeah.
Give us your sales
18.
pitch, yeah.
So I'll skip these.
Finish
So
it.
I, here's the proposed tenant improvements. I'm gonna go quickly. So this is what the current layout is. This is what the new layout would be. And so you can see that there's new walls going in here to kind of box out the kitchen. There's a bunch of new equipment. The bar area looks like a tremendous upgrade. Because right now the bar is like basically a man cave residential bar is what it really is. And so they're gonna be stripping that all out of there. They're really turning this space into what I would consider a residential bar and kitchen. That's what the VFW had it set up as, to a commercial bar and kitchen. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you say that's?
Yeah,
I would,
say-
I would agree. I'd say
Yeah.
the only thing commercial about that kitchen is the fact that it has a hood system and the correct size of water pipe. Everything else needs to change.
Can I just ask, because the ADA stuff came up, so, because I looked at this and got on Street View to see where the ramp was and the ramp's in the back, so are you allowing? You've got to set up something so that if you do have somebody in a wheelchair, there's some sort of contact they can make at the back door, because that would be the back door, or?
Yes, so we're gonna leave the back door unlocked. You can just
Either-
open it
Okay.
from the
Either
back.
Okay.
We are upgrading the lighting, which is not included in this grant,
Okay.
but upgrading the lighting around the entire perimeter. So we'll be lighting the ramp. We'll be putting a light above the entrance in the rear and an entrance in the front.
Okay,
And there is also a 42-inch walkway that connects the front to the back of the building.
okay, good. Right,
So one more question on your business readiness, because you're going to be a bar and restaurant, has the Department of Health looked at the plan and approved it?
We
Liquor,
are
have they
going.
looked at it and approved it, or? at
We are
least-
going through plan review with the health department right now.
Okay.
I've built out 2 of my own restaurants in the past
I
and
see how you're doing.
I've helped to build out 2 more since COVID.
Just
So,
want to make sure that
yes, I
not going
have,
in this naive.
I'm not going in this
Yeah.
blind.
I've been there, that's why I'm asking.
I opened my first restaurant in 2014 and it was very successful.
Okay.
But I have contacts at the health department. I've been in constant contact with both the health and the building department. And we, everything we've proposed falls in line with the needs of those departments.
Cool. All
And I
right.
have to say, with working with Yvonne, it's been a delight because we've gotten so much information and even a thorough like idea of what the business plan is gonna be and stuff. It's way beyond what we typically receive. So I've been very
Good.
this
impressed.
isn't her first rodeo,
Great.
so that's
Good.
great.
And then this is the last thing I just want to share with you, or actually, do I have another slide? So I just want to share this with you as I bring these requests before you. I'm going to be changing this a little bit. So we're going to be talking about, the percent of the project costs that you would be deciding to invest in. So for the project cost of what is presented before you tonight, the Urban Renewal Board would be about 45% of that would be paid for by the Urban Renewal Board. And then I wanted to just let you know, and I'm going to continue to do this every time you receive one of these, is the biennial budget that you had decided to allocate for grant programs is 400,000. So far, and the staff report does a more thorough job of breaking this down, but so far you've decided to allocate about $76,200. So you roll within the line item that you all decided to allocate. Even with this, it would go to up to about 106,000. So you would still have, roughly 294,000 remaining.
Okay. All right, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
There's a motion by board member Sheldon and a second by board member Mayton to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Opposed nays or thumbs down. Motion carries. Congratulations. We're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We're excited to get
When?
here in Sandy.
When's the big day? When's the opening?
Well, now we've got to build the dang
Yeah,
thing.
you gotta make it
So
happen.
we've probably got about 2 months, but our contractor and our plumber are lined up. They're ready to go.
Permits
So
are a bugger around here. I'll just tell you.
Right.
we were waiting to apply for permits until we got approval, but we'll have permits in the next couple of days. And then as soon as we get those approved, we'll break
Great.
some ground.
Awesome.
Looking forward to
Best
that.
of luck to you all.
Thank you. We're excited to be
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you.
All right, moving ahead, we have the purchase of parking lot at 39050 Pioneer Boulevard.
Thank you,
Chicken.
board chair.
Right.
Should edit my title here to not city manager purposes of the staff report.
Yes.
So this is not the first time we've had a discussion about the 2 parcels located at 39050 Pioneer Boulevard. But this is the first time it's being presented in a more formal way like this. Back in 2020, this possible acquisition was first broached with the council and the urban renewal board. At that time, it was a much more costly list price. Since then, the priorities of the urban renewal board have changed. We've moved away from the bunker building reinvestment and things like that that were being talked about at that time. And the price has come down substantially. Most recently in December, we had a meeting to discuss urban renewal project priorities and expenditures. And one of the topics that came out of that was investment in properties located in the urban renewal district that help meet the objective of the plan. So this specific parcel, or these 2 specific parcels, both sort of relate to 2 different items in the plan. One is property acquisition, the other is public parking facilities. And so a little bit about the property. It's about 1.3 acres. There's currently 49 or 50 parking spaces, depending on who counts it and who asks the question, but somewhere in 49 or 50. We have done a environmental assessment of the property, which has not indicated any issues that need to be remediated. We've done an appraisal on the property, which has come back, much less than the original list price and well within the bounds of what we've offered. In conjunction with the city attorney's office, it was determined that the city manager could make an offer on this property pending council or board approval. That's the avenue that we went this go around to prevent losing out on the possible acquisition. Wanted to make an offer. And so tonight we're here before you to seek your approval to actually execute the purchase. I could go into much more detail about, the parking lot itself, but I will spare you some of those boring details and just articulate a few key points here. One is that there is a need for parking in the downtown. At least there was an identified need when we did our last parking study. Since that parking study, there's been several changes. There's no requirements for parking, off-street parking in the C1 area. We also have many more events happening within the Mining Park region, Winterfest. We've got tree lighting and other events that are happening over at the plaza where there's not great parking availability. We also have Mountain Festival, which has thousands and thousands of visitors from outside of the Sandy area, and so parking does become pretty tight at specific times of the year. So having these extra 50 spaces will definitely help alleviate some of those parking concerns that we have in the short term. Also with the redevelopment of the R.S. Smith building, which is right there on the corner, whatever goes into that site will likely need some added parking as well. So this would help hopefully incentivize some future development in existing buildings. Lastly, the city also has the availability to do some commercial development on that site in the future if we decided to go down that path. I don't have a conceptual idea or anything like that, but it is vacant land that could be either developed or sold for other development later on down the line. But at least in the short term, it would help alleviate some of the parking concerns that we have in the more immediate future. And last but not least, in January, I offered $525,000 for the parcels, contingent upon the successful or adequate results of the environmental assessment. Already noted that those came back clean. have a title report, that there's one item on there that's being modified. As soon as that modification's done, we'll be able to execute this agreement with the board's approval. And the last thing that I think I already said the last thing, but the true last thing that I will mention is because the listing agent is out of a local real estate firm's office and board member Exner works out of that office, we recommended that board member Exner recuse himself.
I have a
from
vested
this
interest,
specific purchase.
so I'm gonna recuse myself. So. Get out of here.
I've
never seen the recuse step up, walk away.
I told him he could stay.
I'm not even gonna ask you to do that.
Come sit next to me.
I'm gonna sit back here and just.
Wow.
And with that, I'm happy to answer any
Yeah,
questions.
Chris?
I just have two. With the purchase of a parking lot, do we have to make any enhancements to make it more ADA compliant or EV compliant?
I'm not aware of any ADA compliant things as the parking lot stands now. If we were to do any future development, that would be a different conversation as far as other improvements that might need to happen at that site. But as far as just acquiring the lot today, no ADA improvements are needed. We've talked briefly about adding some chargers, electric chargers in that lot, just to kind of a brainstorming session that we had among staff. Possibilities there to do so. There's some grant funding available from other agencies that could help
That's
offset
where I was
that
gonna
cost.
ask next, is if we have to, where's that money gonna come from?
Yeah, I think my understanding is there's one grant in particular that would fund the entire installation of those EVs or charging stations. We would be on the hook for the ongoing maintenance of them. But that's just one specific grant that we've.
And what about like charging to park,
Monetizing, yes.
monetizing it?
More work needs to be done on, figuring out what the scope of that looks like, but it's definitely a possibility. I think.
Either permanent or special event.
Yeah, and I think part of, the long-term idea with this lot too is sort of circling back to another parking conversation that we've had, at least I've had with some council members, is, parking limits and the amount of parking that happens in some of our lots that becomes their daily parking, which isn't really the intent of public parking. The intent of that was like a place for you to stop and shop, not permanent parking for business owners and their employees. So there's some more work that we could do to research maybe what the best approach is to managing those lots better. And I think that that's something that we can prioritize in the near future. But in the short term, this is a pretty reasonable price to acquire a little over an acre in our downtown core, and with an immediate parking need, but give us some flexibility going forward.
Cool.
Did they, we would not be required, I suppose we could, put in kind of ADA parking spots, a couple, because there's not.
I don't see why we could absolutely install additional ADA parking spots if that's the desire of the council, or mark off at least one or two that are closer to the street for ADA purposes.
We don't have to, okay.
I'd want us to keep, like, it was talking about like the charging station, something that's been in my head is like a transit stop or something.
Yep.
And when you think about budgets that are flush with money versus others that might not be as flush with money, I have no qualms, me personally, with the transit department eventually owning a portion of this or, whatever, so.
Yeah, I think, thank you, Chair, because that's a topic I didn't touch on, but obviously we have a vast amount of people that use the transit center here to go up and, back and forth to the mountain. A lot of those people end up parking in front of City Hall and reducing our already significantly constrained parking that we have here. So I think there's an argument to be made to help prioritize parking and making that a secondary park and ride. There's already one down at the Ops Center. That parking lot that's for staff and for civilians that are going to the mountain. But this could be another destination as far as a parking facility.
Their motion.
Short question. real
Okay.
quick. Who owns the property if we authorize it tonight?
The
City
city owns the
or the urban
property. It
renewal?
was funded by the Urban Renewal Agency.
Let's see if I,
Get the motion?
okay, so, well, I mean, before, I did have one comment, just concern, I guess. Because for me, this one's kind of, I'm torn on this one. I know you guys, everybody else, and I'm sure I'd be outvoted if I did vote no, but my concern is that we built the parking lot across the street from this, and it's in, pardon my French, crappy condition. It's full of potholes and it really needs to be worked on. And so, and a lot of the employees, like you said, just, it's occupied all day. And so I feel like we're just kind of, doing the same thing all over again. just providing employee parking for the businesses there. Now, you know, you could say, well, that's a good thing or not, but, you know, spending $500,000 is a lot when we have this fairly large cost maintenance, you know, refurbishing that needs to be done. So just a little concerned about and I realized that I asked about, could we use any of the urban renewal funds to reconstruct the parking lot? And I, you know, it's probably some fine line between just, you know, laying down some, you know, whatever surface stuff versus repaving it. But my concern is that, you know, there's a real need for what we already have. And putting more parking, especially when we have the school property 2 blocks away, or, you know, that we already have fairly large, it's not paid parking lot, but it's, you know, adequate for the Winterfest and all that for, you know, shuttle parking and things like that. So I'm kind of torn on this one, but just wanting to make sure that we don't forget about the need to fix the heritage parking lot.
So not to take away from the issue with heritage, which to me
It's
stands
real.
on its own.
It was real.
Right, it's real. But I don't compare the 500 to be equal. The 500,000 that's buying a brand new, recently developed piece of land is transferring a liquid asset to a more fixed asset. When we repave, we're not necessarily increasing the value of that asset significantly. We're just maintaining it. So that is a true expense when we repave, as opposed to this is a shifting of the assets. As Tyler mentioned, we could sell it down the road if we needed to.
Yeah, because plus we're buying a little over an acre in downtown core.
Right.
Well,
So
okay,
to me,
yeah.
this is it needs to stand on its own, and we'll
Right.
come back to this other issue at another.
Okay,
point.
but the second, you know, drawback concern I had was that, yeah, talking about developing it, you've got all the costs of improving the Tupper Road section. That whole, the stuff other than what's paved now is pretty steep. It drops more than 20 feet in 150 feet. So it's, you know, over 14% slope there. So, and then we'd be required to put all the curb sidewalks and all that stuff on the Tupper Road end of it, which is pretty, it's, you know, it's kind of much wider at the bottom than it is at the top of this parcel. So just concerns about, you know, are we paying for something that then we're gonna have to spend even way more to improve? And, you know, just, and then I just went ahead and, you know, for grins, I went ahead and highlighted all the parcels in downtown Sandy that are undeveloped and just kind of, you know, why this one, why not that one? And the other, I'll just, you know, the AEC folks that own this property already, you know, use it for their parking. And so,
Yeah, but
This one's for sale.
right,
That's
but
the
then, but
key.
if they're the
Two
ones
things.
parking there all day, you know, after we take it on and then they're still being
So-
used as the same
so the
thing,
first
it's
reason
kind of,
they
just-
built it because they had a lot of staff there.
right.
With COVID, they got rid of all their staff. They all went telework. There hardly any staff there anymore. That parking lot never has more than 2 or 3 cars in it.
Well, but the heritage is full, yeah.
Heritages, but there's a lot of businesses around here.
But I think it
So-
also makes the case that we need more parking.
I think it does. And then you look at our events, and I'm just going back to the value. You're buying 50 beautifully, recently paved, well-maintained, flat parking lots downtown for $500,000. I just don't think you could do it. I mean, it's,
I hear the concerns. I
Yeah,
totally do.
yeah.
Yeah.
I hear them.
Especially the maintenance one, I hear
yep.
that one loud and clear because we also have a lower parking lot between here and the park that is
Yeah.
a disaster that
It
needs
takes-
something done.
Yeah.
it takes like, you know, 2 breaks between the bottom and the top walking up the hill. I mean,
That makes
let's be honest.
Yeah.
Real quickly, yeah. I would like to make sure it remains a priority though, before I vote yes, that we figure out a way to turn it into a park and ride, that it does get used. that
Yes,
We
right,
don't
sure.
just buy it and let it sit there and be for the Winterfest or the
Homeless tent.
The
Oh my
special
gosh,
event.
yes.
But, you know, and that partnership with transit, I really like the idea of the park and ride and pushing it over there to free up the other space. So I want to make sure that that remains a priority and not kind of fall beside the wayside.
Yeah, one thing. Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, can we follow up on that homeless thing? Because being a private parking lot today, the certain abilities to limit things when it becomes public. We might want to consider a parking permit. You know, to take effect immediately with the transfer of the property.
Can I make a motion for us to authorize the city manager to execute the purchase of a parking lot at 39050 Pioneer Boulevard?
You can. Motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, I got that one. And he's talked a lot about this too, so you can say.
Oh.
There's a motion by Board Member Baton, a second by Board Member Hokinson. All those in favor signify by saying aye or give me a thumbs up.
Aye.
Opposed nays or a thumbs down. Motion carries. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and adjourn the Urban Renewal Board meeting. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.